All right, let's see here. I'm going to, Brett, maybe you could give me a head nod if you can see my screen.
I can see your screen, yes.
Fantastic, great. All right, well, as we get started here this evening, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody. If you just got onto the call, we're very excited that you're here. And primary goal tonight is to share some information with you we think will help help people find a little balance in their health and bring some really unique healing opportunities to our human body. And so tonight's topic is new water fulvic-based minerals. We believe this is a revolution in systemic nutrient delivery and detoxification. That's really going to be the target of our conversation this evening. I'm going to continue to mute lines here as we go. All right, there we go. So fantastic. Thanks for being here, and let me go ahead and get started with some information this evening. I believe that one of the things I'd like to point out at the very beginning of these healthcare professional calls is that we have a main goal in mind, and that is to help you in your practice create a better patient outcome. That is very, very important, and we embrace the concept of regenerative health, which is why the information that we're bringing to you isn't necessarily mainstream medicine. But it is an ancient and amazing healing properties of a product we call fulvic minerals. We call them new water minerals. And we're going to talk all about that this evening. We have a special guest with us tonight that I'm really excited to have because he brings some serious expertise and knowledge to our discussion tonight. So I'm going to keep my information relatively brief tonight, and then we're going to bring in Brett, and I'm going to introduce him here shortly to talk about fulvic minerals and the power that we have in our hands. I like to start off by always mentioning that Hippocrates said something many years ago, that food should be our medicine and medicine should be our food. And I think that's a very important concept and idea, and I think our grandfathers' food was probably pretty healing. That was when food was organic. We didn't have chemicals and fillers and binders and all those things in our food. Today, I think we find that to be a little bit more of a challenge. And no matter what country you're in, I think you'll recognize some of the food groups. Here in America, we call this the standard American diet. And some would say they would put that in the framework of maybe a little bit sad, but the processed foods of today, the highly sugared foods of today, the GMO ingredients, the antibiotics, the fillers and binders of all kinds, I think that we could say fairly that we have a bit of a health crisis on our hands. Much of the food that we consume is devoid of nutrition, but packed with toxins is even a bigger concern, damaging our gut health, our immune system, our overall quality of life. So what can we do about that? Well, that speaks to the mission. The reason that we're on these information calls is to bring awareness to a couple of different points, actually. One is that we need to be, looking at what we're putting in our body. This fuel that we're putting in our body creates toxicity and challenges. So our mission is to educate people, but also to bring into the market some science-based wellness products to help us have a healthier, happier, better life. And our particular target is dealing with inflammation, dealing with oxidative stress, detoxification from the things that are in our environment, regulating hormones, dealing with these types of imbalances. Really reach out to so many different imbalances that we actually would have specific titles and disease names for. So we're going to be talking about fulvic acid and the differentiator that can actually make. I don't want to get too far into the call without recognizing our owners, Mark St. Ange, who has a 30-year history in this product line. He's been working with fulvic mud for quite some time, and we'll hear from him another night. Tonight we have another expert on the phone with us who you're going to meet here very shortly, and Cara Garibaldi, who is a driving catalyst behind us getting out and sharing this message. So it's a very powerful message. I think you're going to enjoy the information. I think we need to identify the world that we're living in. And I don't think this is rocket science to any of the practitioners who are on this line, because you're affronted with this every day. I mean, we're all affronted with it personally, but you're dealing with people who have tipped the scale on that toxicity and are now experiencing some significant health challenges. So the toxicity that we end up with in our body is from the air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink, and even the very ground that we walk on. So I don't think it's a stretch to think about the world as a toxic place. In fact, the statistics of what happens with these chemicals in our body are not good. And I think that these are things we can all recognize, whether it's chemicals related to cancer, brain function, endocrine system disruptors, hormone imbalances, reproductive health. The list goes on and on. One of the things I have a particular heart for is the babies that come into the planet that don't even have the ability to make any kinds of decisions for themselves. They are subject to the same toxicity. Nobody really escapes the environment that we all are in. So babies finding over 200 industrial chemicals and pollutants in their blood. So I think that we're at a point now where, we need to be paying attention. We need to be thinking about these things. There's a gentleman years ago by the name of Linus Pauling, a Nobel laureate, that once said, you can trace every sickness, every disease, every ailment to a mineral deficiency. And I think that's a very powerful statement. I think that minerals, and know that minerals are responsible for a great many functions in our human body. And I think we can safely say that our soils are depleted, and because of depleted soils, our vegetation is depleted. And because of that, there's a good chance our bodies are experiencing a high state of depletion as well. So we're going to be talking, or we are talking about minerals tonight, and fulvic minerals specifically. Fulvic minerals are something that is, I think, getting a little bit of conversation in the marketplace. I think minerals has been a conversation for quite some time, but there's a difference in how minerals are assimilated by the body, how they're used. The bioavailability is another term that is often associated with how does our body receive and utilize these nutrients. We're going to be talking about a source of fulvic minerals coming from a bog or a bogland, which is a wetland. As you can see in this image on the screen right here, it accumulates peat. It's actually the decomposition, in our case, of over 1,500 different plants over thousands of years have decomposed and created a very rich substance. So rich in fulvic acid, rich in vitamins, rich in minerals. And this humic acid, it just provides such an amazing benefit to our human body. But the interesting thing is, fulvic acid, we hear about it from different parts of the planet. We hear about it from fossilized sources. This is organic. It is from plant matter. And interestingly enough, our owner was able to find that the richest concentration of humic fulvic acid on the planet that has yet been found is up in the northern Ottawa Valley, basically in Mark St. Onge's backyard. And so it's kind of neat that this product comes from Canada. There are a lot of Canadians on the call tonight getting this information, and it's right there up in the pristine heartland of Canada. So we're going to talk more specifically about that, but I want to just address a couple of key benefits here before we bring Brett on. And that the key benefits we're going to be talking around this evening is anti-inflammation, anti-inflammatory, cell regenerating, how this type of product can actually help to regenerate the cells, how it can bind to heavy metals, bind to toxins and bring them out of the cell, regulate hormones, and fill in the potholes. And what I mean by that is it's adaptogenic. It can fill in the things that are missing. We have a very professional product line, and it is all fulvic mineral based. And we have a blanket of benefits that come with this. And I'm excited to have our expert on the phone tonight because he's going to be able to deepen the conversation in these areas. But having something that can increase oxygenation at a cellular level up to 45%, boost our metabolism, support our digestive and immune system, support our brain health, and actually is one of the most powerful electrolytes on the planet. It's organic, it's gluten-free, we don't have any sugar or calories or all those kind of things that people are now concerned about, and rightfully so. We have a very clean and wonderful product. The product comes in a couple of different forms. It comes in liquid drops, it comes in individual sachets, and we've even found a way to infuse coffee with the mineral product. And that's it's nice that we have ways that are very easy and very convenient for people to get this high-powered nutrient into our body. So I would like to introduce the gentleman I'm going to bring on tonight. His name is Brett Hawes. He's a functional medicine practitioner, been a nutritionist for over 15 years. He's a lead faculty member at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition for the last 12 years. He's been involved with an organization that I have a great amount of respect for and I'm really excited about, because when I talked earlier about needing to know what we're doing, how to find organic. how to find organic foods, how to do all these different types of things. We need people providing information to us. The Detox Project is one of those organizations that helps us understand what's in our food and what things we should be concerned about. So he continues to educate himself, but he also continues to educate the masses through doing webinars and podcasts and just a lot of incredible things. And so I would like to introduce Mr. Brett Hawes, and I just have the honor of having you on the call this evening. Good evening, Brett.
Hi, John. Thank you so much. It's great to be here and chatting about one of my favorite things.
Well, I know it is one of your favorite things, and I think when we first had the very first conversation, it was like an automatic bells going off, because it's obviously an area that you've been involved in, and being involved in nutrition, you're obviously aware of the challenges that we have in front of us today. So maybe you could start off by giving us a little bit of an idea of the focus of your functional medicine practice, because I think everybody has kind of their specific point that they deal with. What's the perspective? What's the lens that you're coming from?
Well, I think the easiest way to explain it is, the best of science and the best of nature. All right. And, the sort of core tenet of functional medicine is really to restore function to the human body, right? Versus simply using supplements or drugs or whatever it is to band-aid symptoms, right? And to sort of give the illusion that everything is well. So that's really the sort of driving force behind it. But obviously that comes with so many challenges, right? Because, as you've laid out in the first portion of this presentation, you've got toxins in the environment, we've got stress, we've got heavy metals, we've got, food that's tainted, that's and the list just goes on and on and on. And so that's really the biggest challenge, or big challenges that I face every single day when it comes to helping people. But I think just to sort of like move us into minerals and so on, I think there's two things that are probably really foundational for people to understand and worth talking about, right? The first one is that your body is hardwired and biologically designed to run on minerals and trace minerals and vitamins and proteins and fats and all of that good stuff, right? So that's really the raw materials that make up every single one of us. And so out of all of those macronutrients, micronutrients, and so on, minerals are actually the hardest to absorb, right? So minerals are extremely difficult to sort of break apart from food. And then once you get them down into the digestive tract, to actually get them across the intestinal membrane into the blood, and then to get them from the blood into the cells, it's extremely challenging. And the other flip side of that is that we don't make any minerals in our body. Okay, we can make a lot of the vitamins aside from vitamin C. We can make a lot of vitamins. Foods are fortified with vitamins, but a lot of foods are not fortified with minerals. So the challenge here is that we have to get our minerals from food. Okay, and of course, the food and the plants and the animals all get their minerals from the soil, right? And so if you go back and look at, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, pre-industrial farming, what you would have seen is that people were eating trace minerals, fulvic and humic acids every single day with every single meal that they were eating, right? And now because of modern farming and because of pesticides, chemicals and so on, which really kill all of the microorganisms in the soil, what's happening now is that decomposition is not really happening. And we've lost so many of our minerals. The last stat I looked at was, I think the best case scenario is Australia, where they've only lost 75% of their minerals. That's the best case scenario. When you get into North America and heavy industrialized farming areas, it's around 85, 86%. And those minerals have essentially all washed out into the ocean, right? So we sort of have those are two sides of the issue that we're really dealing with. One, it's very difficult to digest, and two, we're simply not getting them in our food. There've been multiple studies now in high-level journals, books that have been written about this, where the nutrient levels in all food has declined. Right? All nutrients have declined in all food over the last 50 years. So, if you don't have nutrients, you can't control inflammation. You can't balance your hormones. You can't run your body, right? But one of the big challenges, right? So I always, like, when I talk about this stuff, it's like, where do I start, right? Because there's so many different areas that I can start in. And I think I would like to sort of say that I've been using fulvic and humic acids and trace minerals pretty much since day one in practice. And that's going back 15 years now. So as soon as I first started researching them, I'm like, wow, this is something that everyone needs. And there's a number of reasons why. I mean, the obvious ones I just explained, but oftentimes what I started realizing in practice, right, was people were very focused on the macro minerals, right? So we're all familiar with our calcium, our magnesium, our iron, and so on, right? But what I started realizing was people were taking these macro minerals and then they still weren't absorbing them, right? Particularly iron. Because iron's one of those things when you're deficient, you're just like low. You're super tired all the time, right? And so what I started noticing, I was like, wow, these people are taking iron and the levels are eking up. They still feel tired. They're still pale. They're still constipated and whatever else. And then I said, you know what? Why don't you just drop trace minerals, fulvic and humic acid on top of that? And literally some of my students within days, they're like, wow, I feel myself coming back to life. And that for me, this was many, many years ago that I started dialing into that. And it made me realize, matching the research with the real world sort of like outcomes, if you will, I realized that a lot of people are not absorbing the macro minerals and their nutrients because they don't have the trace minerals. Because what trace minerals are like little tiny helpers, right, that help absorb and metabolize the macro minerals. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine how many people are taking multivitamins, we're eating right, we're doing all this stuff, and we're just like on a cellular level, we're deficient. And it's crazy because I see lab reports coming back from doctors, and I see that the serum levels in the blood are all normal, right? And then when I go and measure inside the cells, they're deficient. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge mismatch because you're going to present with deficiency symptoms. So the bottom line here, just to sort of like really get into it, fulvic and humic acids will increase the cellular nutrient absorption by 60 times. Okay, so not 60%, 60-fold, which is crazy. I don't know of anything else that does that, right? So they will drag 60 times their weight of nutrients into the cell. They will take 60 times their weight of toxins out of the cell.
Okay, so let me ask this question then, because so you're talking about it can take more in. So what's the mechanism? I mean, how is it transporting it, so it can carry a lot with it? I hear that. Yeah. How is it different in terms of how it gets into the cell than the other things that we're putting in our body?
So part of it has to do with the electrolyte capacity, right? So electrolytes serve many different functions, but on the cellular level, you have sodium potassium pumps, right? Which largely require sodium and potassium, but your electrolytes will also control the electrical functioning in all the cells, right? So cells, they have a fatty layer around them, and they use these pumps to move things back and forth, right? But those pumps require fuel, just like your car requires fuel. So if you're deficient, the pumps don't work properly. So that's like, I think from a very surface level, is probably a good way to explain it. It also, another way to explain it is, this is going to sound really weird and it's very lay terms, right? But I believe that on the cellular level, when you're deficient in the macro minerals, it's almost like your bodies or your cells have put up a barrier. Okay, so some practitioners listening to this might be familiar with things like tissue salts in homeopathics, right? What the tissue salts in homeopathics do is break down the barrier so that you can absorb the minerals, right? Fulvic and humic acids do exactly the same thing. Okay, so a lot of it has to do with the electrolytes, with the electrical charge, because every single cell in your body also has an electrical charge. And when that electrical potential goes down, they've actually measured the voltage of cancer cells. That's kind of a crazy thing to even think about, right? Measuring the voltage, like a little voltmeter. And they've noticed that the electrical potential in cancer cells is way lower. So restoring that electrical potential is a game changer for cellular health. And of course, the cell is where pretty well all metabolism happens. It's the primary site for body metabolism. So if the cell is not working properly, you're not working properly. Okay, so that's one side of it. Detoxifying. People would laugh at me, right? Years ago, I would say, hey, we're going to do cellular detoxification. And they were like, what? Like, I know how to do bowel. I know how to do, liver. How are you going to do the cells, right? And so this is it. So when you start flooding your body with good nutrients and then you double down with fulvic, humic, and trace minerals, now you're actually getting rid of metabolic wastes at the cellular level as well, which is pretty powerful stuff.
So when you talk about it being, fulvic, humic, or fulvic acid being an accelerator or being that transport mechanism,
sure.
Does it take other nutrients that we put into our body? Because, obviously we're eating, whether it's vegetables or we're eating meat or whatever our regime is, our body has to be empowered to break those things down. And so appears to me that the nutrients that are provided through the humic acid that are coming through this whole liquid solution of these decomposed plants over a period of time, that in and of itself is a pretty high level or dense nutrient that's coming in. How does it affect other things that we're doing, whether it's medications or other types of food, or is there an acceleration process?
There is. I mean, I think acceleration is perhaps not the correct framing. I think that it improves absorption. Okay. So bioavailability is probably a better word, right? But if you think about this, if you look at an orange, right? An orange, everyone goes an orange, and if I said, why would you eat an orange? You'd say vitamin C. But if you actually look at the breakdown of an orange, it has over 400 compounds in it. And when researchers look at the antioxidant capacity of vitamin C in an orange versus ascorbic acid, it is like night and day, right? Like 5 milligrams of vitamin C in an orange is equivalent to 1,500 milligrams of ascorbic acid. And everyone goes, how? How does that work? And it's like, because all of those 400 micronutrients help to make the vitamin C more bioavailable. So coming back to your question, this will improve nutrient absorption and assimilation from all sources, whether it's your supplements, whether it's your greens powder, whether it's your bacon and eggs in the morning, whatever it is, right? It's going to improve the absorption of everything. And just something you mentioned, medication, right? I'm just going to say this. I don't know of any side effects or negative impacts with medication. And I will just say as a disclaimer, if you're unsure, go and speak with your healthcare provider. But because we are talking about decomposed plant matter, it's generally very well tolerated because the dosages are extremely low. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're not talking about high doses of iron or high doses of chromium or something. We're talking about real trace elements. So that's I think is probably another point that's worth mentioning.
So when and kind of along that line of thought, I know that one of the things that I have looked at in terms of usage of this product, that there's a maintenance level, there's a performance level, there's maybe a therapeutic application. How would you create some separation? We know with this particular product, we're talking about a concentrated humic fulvic compound, mm-hmm. And in 5 mils as a serving, if you will. How would you kind of separate that maintenance to therapeutic or performance? How would you?
Yeah, and I think that's something that, interestingly enough, I actually had Mark on my podcast. So that's coming out this week, hopefully, if I can get my act together, mm-hmm. and published it. And so we actually discussed that a fair bit on the podcast. And I think that there's different shades of gray because, it's not like a pharmaceutical where there's a definitive dose and then there's no dose. This is a gradient because it's going to, body weight is going to factor in, your toxicity levels are going to factor in, do you have pre-existing health conditions? But one of the things that he said was basically, one thing that he did historically in the past was actually do external applications as well as internal for detoxification. So actually doing mud baths, like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and then also taking, instead of 1 serving a day, maybe taking 3 to 4 to 5 servings a day. But you always got to be a little bit careful when you do that, because if you draw too many toxins out at once, or you push too hard, you're obviously going to get those sort of negative detox reactions as well. So just something to be, I guess, cognitive of. Mm-hmm. But one thing that Mark and I actually as we're talking about that now is like, what protocols can we come up with for health professionals? And I've got some of those, on my laptop and sort of going through those a little bit. So hopefully in the near future, we're going to sort of be able to pull that together for health professionals more than anything and say, hey, if you want to work with this as a detox tool in your practice, here's how to do it. Here's the sort of ABCs of it all.
So when you come in, that's a perfect segue, Brett, into my next question. And that is, your work with the Detox Project. And that I'm pretty passionate about GMOs and that information, and glyphosate particularly as an active ingredient in Roundup, and the devastating effects that has on the microbiome and so forth. How do you see this playing a part in the restoration of the microbiome and its functions, which are so incredible in terms of immune function and brain health?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see if we can start and make this coherent, because there's lots of moving parts. So I think one thing that we should all understand, again, glyphosate is the principal ingredient in Roundup. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Roundup is the most widely used weed killer on the planet. So it's the most widely used agricultural chemical, right? And it has a number of sort of real serious effects on the body. Relative to the microbiome, it obviously is a weed killer, so it has antibacterial properties, right? And for the longest time, researchers sort of said, oh, it only works on the shikimate pathways in bacteria or in weeds, right, in plants. And what they then started realizing was, oh, wow, bacteria in our gut also have a shikimate pathway, and this glyphosate actually kills our good bacteria. So that's one, right? And now if your good bacteria go down, obviously your bad bacteria can go up. Okay, so that's dysbiosis or a bacterial imbalance. It's not a good thing. But the other thing that happens with gut health is that oftentimes the pH of the gut is off. Okay, and I would actually say the pH of the body is off as well. Because that starts in the gut and then it trickles over into the rest of the body. So one of the things that fulvic and humic acids do is they will actually pull water into the cells. Okay, so you pull H2O into the cells. This is not just in the gut. This is actually in the entire body. So they pull H2O into the cells, and then you got cellular hydration. But then once it's inside the cells, it splits, right? So it splits the oxygen and the hydrogen. So you now have cellular oxygenation, which of course cancerous cells do not like that. And you also have the hydrogen, which now affects the pH. So you can, from a microbiome standpoint, you're actually going to bind up the glyphosate. Okay, a lot of the products now, just with Detox Project, obviously a focal point for them is glyphosate detoxification and products that do that. And there's not a lot of products that do, but every single product that is showing promise is all using fulvic and humic acids, which is in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a powder, whether it's a pill, whether it's a liquid. And because we have a concentration that's 36% versus 7 to 11 from any other product, that's where I'm headed next with New Water. And, we've had those discussions is I want to see what this does with glyphosate detoxification, because I'm pretty sure, based on what I know, I'm pretty sure that it's going to bind up glyphosate. So coming back to the microbiome, bind up the glyphosate, coming from food, coming from air, the water, wherever, and get that out of the body. So you essentially shield and protect the good bacteria. You then shift the pH in the gut to be more alkaline. Bad bacteria don't like alkalinity. They prefer acidic. So, it just sort of all goes from there, right? But the other thing that people don't realize with glyphosate is glyphosate actually triggers leaky gut, believe it or not. This is even in people who don't have leaky gut. So this constant, intake of glyphosate causes the tight junctions in the gut to become loose. And what that does is leaky brain, or leaky gut equals leaky brain. Okay, so you got a barrier, you got a blood-brain barrier around here. When the gut is leaky, the brain barrier becomes leaky, and now toxins can get into the brain. Okay, and I'm not going to name any diseases, but I'll let you put the pieces together, right? So the idea here again, leaky gut leads to autoimmune disease, leads to all sorts of other stuff. So by preventing glyphosate from coming in, we actually inadvertently help to seal the gut. Okay. I would say you also have to look at food. You have to look at stress. Obviously there's other things, but nonetheless, this is a very powerful ally in that sense.
I think that's really what it comes down to. I think that the toxicity in our world is prevalent. We need to have an equalizer, because I think that looking at our lifestyles, it's very difficult to say, I'm going to live in a test tube. I'm going to live in a bubble. So we have to have something that's going to help kind of balance the score, or at least get us to the point where the the scale isn't being tipped in a way that's not advantageous.
Well, I think also, you sort of bring up an important point, is that you can't live in a bubble. It's impossible. That bubble doesn't exist, unless you build yourself in some kind of like crazy lab that's airtight and watertight and whatever else, and no one's going to do that. The world that we live in, as you said in the beginning of this presentation, it is unavoidable. All right, these things are unavoidable. Even if you're eating clean and organic and exercising and doing all the right stuff, it's just the world that we live in these days. So I think taking preventative measures, but the thing that I love about fulvic, humic, and trace minerals, and why I've used them for so long on myself and in my clinic, is it really forms a solid backbone around anything else you do. Right. So whether you'll hear from Mark on another presentation. I mean, Mark is actually a physical therapist, right? He does massage and body work, and he was using that externally and internally, right? So even in a spa type setting, clay masks, mud baths, stuff like that, it works great. But if you're doing some kind of nutritional therapy, a nutritionist, a naturopath, a dietitian, a functional medicine practitioner, if you're working with supplements, whatever those are, whether it's herbs, homeopathy, whatever it is, this can really form the backbone of everything else that you do. Right, which is pretty powerful stuff, because again, coming back to the first thing that I said, your body is biologically designed to function on these things, and unfortunately it's deficient in the soil and the food.
Well, I love the fact that we have what I would consider Mother Earth's original superfood store.
100%.
And
100%.
the fact that it's pristine, it is organic, it's what's been designed for our system. And we're talking about plants here, which is very different from fossilized and other types of minerals.
Very.
I'm just excited that we've tapped into some, I would consider at one level, kind of ancient knowledge, an ancient bed of youthful regeneration. I think most of us want to enter the years in our life ahead with enthusiasm and energy and vitality and a sharp mind. So you brought a lot of those pieces to the surface today.
Yeah, and one last thing I will say, which I thought was very interesting, and I'm not 100% sure because I think it would be very difficult to analyze, but you think about 1,500 species of plants that have decomposed over thousands of years, right? And you got to wonder to yourself, like, how many of those species are even around anymore, right? And then you also sort of then go from there, and my mind goes, wow, there must be some crazy phytocompounds and phytonutrients that are in there, and phytohormones, plant hormones that are all just boiled right down into this like trace mineral and trace elements. But from an energetic perspective, I mean, that's what homeopathy is, right? You dilute something to live like nothing in the liquid, but the energetic imprint will actually work as almost like a carrier wave in your body, right? So you can imagine you've got 1,500 species, you've got tens of thousands of different types of phytocompounds and phytonutrients, and now you're sort of taking that in. And the way I look at that is, it's like, your body is going to pick up on whatever it needs, right? So for one person, anti-inflammatory is going to be the thing, right? For the next person, maybe it's going to be more hormones or skin or whatever it is. But you've got the smorgasbord, if you will, of things in one bottle.
I love that you use the concept of homeopathy, because I think that we're living in a time now where we have to recognize the energetic aspect of medicine or health or plants. And these are things that we're starting to draw even some scientific correlations there that are significant. And so I think that we may have considered that at one time to be, wow, that's a little bit out there, is becoming certainly more acknowledged. And there are more and more of us who are taking a product and going, I can feel that difference.
100%.
Well, I think that we, energy medicine is a whole other category, which I'm sure we would love to explore together, Brett. And I want to kind of finish off with a little bit of additional information for practitioners, or if you're somebody who's passionate about this kind of information and you want to go bring some practitioners into this sphere of knowledge, this is a great breeding ground for that. And I just want to invite you back. I really appreciate the time that you've spent tonight, and invite you back to go further into the mud hole.
100%. I'm always down. Wonderful.
Well, if there's anything that I've missed that you feel you need to put icing on the cake, this is that moment to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to carry on.
I think I'm good. I don't want people to drink from a fire hose. I think I hit the high notes, and if you're not excited, then hit me up and I'll tell you some more.
Yeah, very good. Well, I appreciate that, and I know we're gonna be having you back to visit with us again. So
awesome. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. So I think that when we look at the bigger picture here of New Water, we're talking about dealing with mineral deficiency, dealing with the toxic soup that we're living in, strengthening our body's ability to detox, restoring vitality. And for the practitioners, it's about improving patient care. And it's even about creating additional practice revenue. And that's a part of our model as well. With a new mindset and different things that we can bring into your practice, new results do occur. We have 5 steps that I think are relevant for all practices, because you may have the desire to go out and really help people, but also we need to keep your practice in good shape as well, so you can continue to do the work that you do in helping people have better outcomes in their health. So the 5 outcomes to wellness that we really try to focus on as a company is patient results, helping people heal faster, feel better, give the body the building blocks that it needs. Patient referrals, you just can't keep good, vibrant health down. So people have a tendency to share something that's working for them. Patient retention is obviously an important part of every practice. And people, when they're doing well, they tend to want to continue to get that good advice. We present a pretty interesting opportunity for professionals to consider this an ancillary service to have a very positive effect on the revenues of your practice. We feel that our product serves the patient and our program serves the healthcare provider. And so those are all important aspects for us. We do have this healthcare professional program. You see the name Black Oxygen Organics here. You hear the word New Water. Our company is Blackwater Organics. New Water is how we have the brand on our product at this time. So just to make that connection in terms of who we are. So I want to address this very quickly because I think it's important for providers to understand that our pricing model is a little bit different. We don't have a retail wholesale pricing model. We don't really want to play that game. We want to provide something of genuine value to the world. We have a special situation for professionals, which I'm going to give you the down low on that right now. But we have a retail price that is the same for our customers, whether they're buying as a retail customer or you're buying as one of our distributor or distribution partners. We offer the same pricing. We do offer a little bit of a discount when people want to just kind of pre-programmed make this a part of their daily life. And that's what we call our monthly autosave. So we do offer something a little bit special there. But for professionals, if you qualify for the professional program, then we basically have 3 different packages of our product. I mentioned to you earlier, we have the individual bottles, the sachets, and we have infused coffee. You have the ability to purchase the products from the company at a 35% discount. There is a criteria to being involved in the professional program. And a lot of people who would like to be involved in this program just actually, quite honestly, don't qualify for it. So it's a very highly regarded program, and we hope it's something you'll be able to utilize in your practice. We do everything online ordering, online management makes it very simple. And to get right down to the things in order to qualify for our program, to get the 35% off, have direct ship to your patients, the online shopping platform, obviously coming back with a money back guarantee because we're super proud of our product, and additional ongoing product education, we require that you're a licensed healthcare professional, that you have a certificate, that you also are part of a professional association, and that you have a place to display and do point of sale business with our product. So if you have an office and you're carrying a lot of other nutraceuticals or other things in your office, this would be a part of that wall of product that you would have in your office. Any other details you can certainly get from one of our New Water representatives. The compensatory elements here, which I would like to at least help you understand that this can have an impact on your practice. Brett started to get into this conversation about, what's the proper quantity of this product for an individual, whether that is a maintenance type of a scenario or whether it is performance or whether it is therapeutic. These things are obviously addressed in office. But if someone is on a maintenance dose and we determine that to be 1 serving a day, based on whether it's an online delivery where we do the fulfillment and everything for you, or whether there's something that happens in office, it's a $12,000 to $24,000 a year additional revenue stream. If you have patients that are on the performance, you can double that, and you can add another third if they're going into more of a therapeutic range. And so we all have unique bodies. We have to understand that what's right for one person may be different for somebody else, but this just gives you an idea. If you have a certain number of patients that are using the product at a certain level, what type of additional revenue that can create for your office just from a point of sale standpoint. Okay, so the design, the plan is designed for every practice to succeed. So if you've always wanted to make your practice one of the early adopters where people can go experiment with things that are new coming into the market, having a really incredible effect on patients, then this is your moment. Breakthroughs happen all the time. The question is, which side of the breakthrough would you like to be on? And we're excited that you came to get the information tonight. We consider this important information. And there are those of us who are out here just trying to educate people. We are imagining a world where we are able to benefit our patients, benefit people that we know, whether that be just in their health or also in their financial health and the financial health of your practice. We invite you to consider that as part of what we do as well. So if this resonates with you, we want to invite you to jump in the mud with us, bring this into your practice. Let's see what Mother Nature's superfood store can do, what this pristine, ancient source, this peat bog from northern Ottawa Valley can do for you, can do for your patients. And the information that we've shared is going to continue to get deeper. The products that we have, we're continuing to expand the fulvic acid product line, because as much as important as it was for Mark in 2012 to start finding a way to allow people to get these kind of incredible benefits, not just from bathing in the mud, but from doing something much faster and much easier just by consuming water and some of our minerals, is super powerful. But he also acknowledges that getting it from the outside, as Brett was saying tonight, getting that fulvic penetration from a bathtub or from that mud, we have some things in store down the road that are going to address being able to get this incredible superfood from multiple places, and the benefits are amazing. So with that, if you have some questions, you can get back with the person who invited you to be on this call tonight. We invite you to jump in the mud with us one more time, and thank you for being here on our information session tonight. Have a wonderful evening, and we hope to see you again soon. I'm going to stop my recording here.